Welcome back to Tib Reviews, A Dance with Dragons. I had to start off by apologizing. In the last video, I said I would be back shortly, and it was not my intention to mean like the George R.R. Martin shortly. I actually meant shortly, but a couple things came. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I apologize, and I will do my best to do these videos in a bit more timely fashion. So let's pick up where we left off with Chapter 3, which is Jon. Awesome! Right? All of us have been waiting to hear more about Jon. We got like this much of a story. Like we got a little conversation with Sam in the last book, but I don't want to say I felt entitled, but it doesn't seem right to have had a whole book really without anything from some of these key characters. So it's really good to have this. So this chapter starts off with Jon, or rather, it starts off with Ghost, but Jon's having a wolf dream in Ghost. Yeah, so that's cool. So we're starting to find out that Bran is not the only one that is having these wolf dreams. I mean, obviously Arya's kind of getting a couple of these now as well, though I don't think she really understands it quite yet. Not that we really understand a whole lot of what's going on with her in the last book. But nevertheless, he's having his wolf dream, and he kind of understands it now. He's starting to see that he is able to, perhaps not control just yet, but at least is aware of what's going on with Ghost. So that's kind of cool. So he wakes up. We got a little conversation with Dul Rissed, which we all enjoy that. Let's be honest. And he gets up and he finds out a couple wildlings had come over in the middle of the night, and they were most likely half-starved. I mean, it wasn't most likely. We know for a fact they were half-starved. It was a bad situation for all of them. And say what you will for what I feel is a very boring introduction in the prologue, they do paint a pretty grim picture of what it's like on the other side of the wall. So it would stand to reason that some people of desperation would say, you know what, I know we've been fighting these guys the whole time, but whatever, let's cross the wall, at least they have food. So they do, and not a whole lot of information out of that, but, you know, I guess he's just kind of telling us a little bit that, you know, that they're coming over in small pieces, in small bits and groups and whatnot. So their wildling contingent on the other side of the wall, on the western side of the wall, is growing. So he gets up and he has to go see Stannis, and I guess as he's making his way over there, he sees the people with the bows. We heard about the bows in A Feast for Crows, how Jon realized, I guess, like how important having, like, you know, archers was to the defense of the wall, and so he has, you know, like he said in the last book, declared that everybody's got to practice with the bow, including Sam, much to his chagrin. So, nevertheless, which also brings up an interesting point as well. This chapter takes place before A Feast for Crows, which really pisses me off more, because technically this happened first, but we get A Feast for Crows anyways. But, nevertheless, so he goes to go see Stannis, and along the way he runs across Godry Faring, I believe. I apologize if I got that wrong. I'm sure someone will correct me if I am. But he basically says, you know, hey, that's a pretty sword you got there, and you know, you should probably use that. You know, we want to see, you know, that we want to see this acclaimed sword that you are, and we want to make sure that, you know, he's basically challenging him. He's basically saying that, you know, here you are, child. Which you got to remember, he's got to be like 14 or 15 right about now, so he's pretty young compared to these guys who are presumably in their late 20s and 30s for the most part. Maybe a little bit older, maybe a little bit younger, but significantly older than him. You know, I would venture to say the majority of the Night's Watch are probably 10 years older than Jon. So, at any rate, so he's like, you know, that's a pretty sword. Why don't you come out here and practice with us? You know, I won't hurt you. Finger pistols. There were no finger pistols. At any rate, and Jon basically just blows him off. Says, "Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. But, you know, you have yourself a good day." And they're kind of laughing and whatnot. But I think he just kind of, you know, brushes it off. I do like how they approached him though. You know, they're like, "Hey, boy," and he just keeps on walking. "Hey, boy, you there, kid, Jon Snow, yo, whatever, yo, dog." Nothing. And then finally they're like, "Lord Commander." "Oh, hello there. I'm sorry. Were you calling to me? I couldn't hear you." So that was interesting. And he's a Queens man, we find out. So we have Kingsmen and Queensmen, Wildlings, and Crows, or Brothers of the Night's Watch. So we have Queensmen who are basically sworn to Stannis' wife, and by proxy, the Melisandre. And then we have the Kingsmen, which are sworn to Stannis. So the Queensmen are a bit... well, we're left with the feeling that maybe Jon doesn't trust them as much. Although, let's face it, his enemies are kind of all over the place right now, and I guess he doesn't really trust anybody right now. But specifically, he feels a little questionable about them. So, at any rate, he finally goes and he sees Stannis, and Stannis gets a letter. And he's like, who is Lyanna Mormont? And he's like, oh, that's this 10-year-old from Bear Island. That's the old bear's, I guess, his granddaughter. She's 10, so yeah, it'd have to be his granddaughter. And she basically, in so many words, gave him the finger and said, no, we will not be swearing to you. We swore our oath to King Robb, who's dead. But nevertheless, we have sworn our swords to him, and that's the end of that. So he's real pissed off because so far only the Karstarks have bent the knee to Stannis, and Stannis is obviously in dire need of people. He's got enemies literally on all sides at this point, including some new ones that he's just acquired. And so he's a little worried about this and that. And he keeps saying, don't tell anybody that you heard that these people are not willing to join us. You're only allowed to talk about this one, the Karstarks, who said that they will join and will be our bannermen. So Jon really can. Jon is very clear in that he does not want any part of any of this. But at any rate, so then it kind of gets to him wanting to get White Harbor. I guess White Harbor is clearly not as rich as some of the other southern cities, but apparently has enough coin and supplies to kind of finance and take care of what he needs to do to kind of keep his forces together. And White Harbor is led by Lord Manderley, who someone was very kindly quick to point out that I apparently resemble, so thanks for that. I have feelings too. I'm just kidding, I'm fat, I know it. But anyway, so he wants to get Lord Too Fat to Sit a Horse, I believe is what he said, to bend the knee to him as well, and it's not looking good, or at least he hasn't heard anything back yet, and we're not really sure what's going on there. So, at any rate, so with that, he kind of goes, all right, well, we'll put that aside for now. What's up with that document I gave you? And if you recall, at the end of A Feast for Crows, Stannis goes to Jon and says, I need you to give me, I can't remember off the top of my head, but basically a bunch of the fortresses on the wall. And so Jon has been kind of dreading this moment because he knows that he really shouldn't. That this is bad. This goes against a lot of what he believes, and more importantly, a lot of what his duties are supposed to be, which is to guard these points. And forever and ever, these have been, under the watch of the Night's Watch. This is his fortresses, for lack of a better term. And so he's like, well, I'm sorry, I can't. I can't trust you to put people over there. It would make me look bad. I have sworn an oath. And I don't necessarily trust the people you're putting over there. And he brings up a good point that apparently they're talking about making a lord out of Rattleshirt, which is, well, interesting at best. But certainly does not bode well for Jon if that's the case. So, because obviously Jon has enough enemies as it is without putting another one in power. So yeah. But he basically says, okay, so here's the deal that I will make you. I will let me defend them. You give me people. I'll put my people in command, but you give me some of your people, and we'll make it happen. And he's like, well, my people aren't going to take the black. And he says, I don't care what they do. They can wear whatever color they want, as long as they submit's the wrong word. As long as they're willing to accept command from my people, then I don't have a problem. And so they agreed to that to a point, you know, and they said, well, you know, in a certain amount of time, if it does not happen, then we're going to have a problem. And so they kind of let it be. And so he leaves, and he goes, and I guess Melisandre walks him out, and she talks about how she dreams of the wall, and she dreams of magics and so forth that the wall possesses, and she ends it with that line, "You know nothing, Jon Snow." It pisses me off. I'm sorry. It's not that the line itself pisses me off. It's that Roy Dotrice says it in such a way that I just want to punch him. So, but at any rate, so this really sets the stage for Jon. This kind of lets you know where he stands. So he's not doing great, but he's okay. He's maintaining. So things are somewhat copacetic. That sounds bad, but whatever. Things are okay for him up at the wall for now, but it's clear that bad things are going to happen, or things are about to get more difficult, I suppose, would be more the appropriate tone that we were left with. So it's good to hear from an old friend, though. It's good to hear from Jon Snow again, and hear about, you know, what's going on at the wall, because let's face it, we missed this. This is to me maybe the most interesting aspect of Westeros right now, because God, I could care less what's going on in the Vale or in King's Landing. You know, that's a whole mess. In fact, I really don't even care what's happening in the Riverlands right now. Really, it's because that's just regular warfare. I mean, we can read about that in any number of books. You know, people fight people, and it's cool, but there's things beyond this wall, and I want to hear about that. So that's going to be interesting. And then more importantly, we get a double dose because the next chapter is Bran. So, without any further ado, I'll go ahead and call it here. And I'll be back shortly to talk to you guys about Chapter 4. So.